I thank ChemExpo for organizing this session so we could meet some familiar faces we've been not seeing past 2 years. We've been interacting through Teams, through Zoom, through phones, but then this interaction was missing. So I would like to thank ChemExpo for this opportunity and also taking this risk as pandemic has not ended yet and you people are still coming and traveling, including me. So thank you for this attending this session. And we've been speaking on chemical regulations as REACHLaw several times, and I will focus my presentation, and these slides are available. We are also exhibiting. The booth number is E16, and these slides will be available by email through the organizers. So you can hear me, and if you have any questions, if you are not able to finish those in this session, we will, of course, I'm available for both the days, today and tomorrow at my booth. The markets such as Europe, UK, Turkey, and also you're doing some activities in India, like you have manufacturing plants or you're doing some trading activities. So you must know what developments India is implementing in regards to the chemical industry. And I'm speaking in global events, not only in India, but this presentation is more on the updates, the regulatory changes. But if you need to have a complete background on how this has to be worked upon due to the time limit, I'm focusing more on the updates. So if you have, for example, made registrations in Europe, or if you have made registrations in UK, and registrations in Turkey means that you are exporting your chemicals in these markets. So you need some kind of license or registration to access and do the business. And then I will also look upon the India activities, and I will not spoil your lunch. So I'll try to finish within the time limit. So this introduction has been done. I look after our business activity in India, and I am associated with REACHLaw since 2008. And also in India, I'm looking after the trade-related regulatory consultancy through ChemExcel, as I'm a consultant, and I support them with the government-related trade and regulatory policies. And I'm based out of New Delhi. So the focus, as I said, is of this slide is to give you an update what is happening in Europe with regards to the changes in the regulation. And Europe is kind of, I would say, the backbone, or where all the countries are more or less following similar principles on how to manage chemicals. But the Europe has a lot of depository and knowledge on chemicals. So, and this is very informative. They have around 25,000 chemicals, and they have more than millions of test information that can be used by Indian chemical companies also when they are managing their safety protocols and also some other information. So I will look upon what changes are coming after 10 years of REACH implementation. The European Commission is looking to change the certain changes in the REACH regulation. And the reason is that the REACH objective, which means that you have to have a safe use of chemical when the chemicals is used in Europe, whether it's consumer, professional, or the industrial, means your workers or the environment. There are still some areas which require certain improvement by the industry, so they are focusing on revision, and this will come within 8 years. So there are certain important changes which are happening, and we are also contributing from Finland those changes. And then I will also talk about the UK came in picture after Brexit. Previously it was part of the European Union, and now it is a separate country. Means you have to have, in all the countries you have to have different registrations. So you have to budget expenses. It is not that you register in one country and you get access to other countries. You have to register in all the countries to get access, and you must know these information to have better interaction with your customers. So your customers must know that you are a responsible supplier, you know their country regulation, and whether you are complying or not complying is something you should decide as a business decision. It's not a technical, of course it requires some technical information, but as a business person it's a business decision, because the costs are somewhere ranging from 10 lakhs to 1 crores of Indian rupees per product. So be careful when you are deciding on these compliances. Budgeting is very important. and how you manage those registrations. All registrations are lifetime registrations. So I will focus Europe, UK as the main market where the changes are happening and registrations are required. Then Turkey, what changes are happening or there are no changes are happening. And then I will also touch base India, what are happening in India due to these changes worldwide, what India is planning to do with their chemical management policies. So this is the brief. I will introduce a brief about REACHLaw, then I will inform you about the changes that is happening in these. So REACH is basically registration, evaluation, authorization of chemicals. And whenever you see REACH, some questionnaire or something, it is important that you know how this is working. But European REACH is, as I said, is the main requirement, and other regulations are following those policies or the requirements. They are fine-tuning certain areas, but the objective is high-level protection of humans and environment remains same in all the jurisdictions, including India. And then I will draw certain conclusions. I would consider some recommendations from my side so that you can follow those if you are doing business with these economies. So as a REACHLaw, we are based out of Finland, and we are specialized in the chemical regulatory compliances, and we work globally, means we have customers from more than 80 countries, and we hold all the expertise in terms of REACH or the regulatory compliances, starting from the European REACH, then UK REACH, Turkey REACH, and then Korea and China. We are also providing services, not as REACHLaw, but then we have partners in those countries, and these partners are existing since more than 10 years. So these are not new partners, because we help those companies, all big companies in Korea like petrochemicals, we support them for registrations from our Finland office. So, and then India, certain changes are happening. As I said, that it is not in force. In force means that it is not implemented. So it is in the draft stage, and what changes and what requirements are there, I will also focus. So as a company, we manage a lot of confidential information of our customers, their product information, their customer details, how much quantities they are selling, what kind of uses they are having, and all your substance identification related information as a registrant. So we have a policy that when we operate in the same economies, we work with our own subsidiaries. We do not work with partners. So it's REACHLaw Turkey, for example, REACHLaw India, REACHLaw UK, and REACHLaw Europe is our head office. So we have all the subsidiaries, and our office in New Delhi is also listed here. So all our colleagues and responsibilities regarding the Indian companies will be managed by the India office. So we control all the customer communication, how you handle those regulations, it's all managed by India. Then these are some of the services we are offering. Market access, then it is more of representation. So you have to have some company, either it's your company or we have a company which will be utilized to make a registration. So this is the main service that companies usually would require, that you need a representation. So you provide a representation service, and this is based on representation. The other registration services follows. So I will not go into the details. I will focus more on what changes are happening, but feel free to visit us through our website. And these are all the regulations. Most of the registration services are same. Some kind of information is different, but your content of the dossier, the information, for example, you generate in Europe can be utilized in Turkey and UK. So you don't have to regenerate that information to some extent. So this is something, as I said, we specialize in chemical regulatory and sustainability. Considering Europe, India has also talked about the green, and government is also focusing on these areas due to pollution issue and the management issue we have. And chemical is used in all the industries, and it also ends up in the end of life of a product. So if you remove the harmful chemicals right from the stage of manufacturing, it will help recyclers or the waste management. So this is happening already in Europe, and the discussions have already started in India also. So this is also our focus coming in future, that we will offer sustainability related, like ESG you must have heard. Nowadays it is more of compliances and responsible player. So we are going into this also services in future. But as I said, we have been talking and these are all YouTube channel that has around 1 hour, 60 minutes videos, and will give you all the information if you are doing business with Europe, Turkey, UK, India. So you can go through these videos and you will get more information. We've been talking through authorities also, what are their views, industry having certain concerns, but if I sit from the authority side, I'm getting your dossiers, what is my feedback is also we are recording. So when industry is working on the regulations, REACHLaw is helping them how to comply with these regulations, on how regulators would see that industry should comply. So that is how we offer our consultancy, considering what regulators are looking, that your quality of dossiers and what kind of mindset you have when you deal in chemicals. So something you can go through and subscribe to our channel. And this is some of the events we've been, India is the first event, as I thank ChemExpo, that this is the first event even in the world, 2022, that is happening. So other events are scheduled regarding chemical industries are scheduled after April, starting India. So we are exhibiting in most of the events. So we have booth again, and we are talking only on chemical regulations in these countries. So something on the disclaimer. So we have our own material, and we are saying that this is more of a generic information for who are providing this services, that regarding those content which is there. So coming to the recent developments, I will talk about European REACH, and the reason is that the slide information would be more useful if you have registered chemicals under REACH. And my focus is that when registrations have happened, now the evaluation is happening, and the Europe is trying to see that all the chemicals, like 24,000 chemicals who have been registered, what kind of information they have on these chemicals in the dossier, and how this information is further processed. So means the risk assessment. And this is where the issue is, that if you see that majority of dossiers are demanding updates. So means that the information which is submitted is not according to the regulators, and they require this information to be improved by using the evaluation process under REACH. And there are different punishment, but I think until 2027, all the dossiers which has been submitted of these 24,000 chemicals will be evaluated. And the evaluation means that they have looking on the risk management, they are prioritizing on the chemicals, whether these are PBT or these are having endocrine disrupting properties. So those chemicals they are looking and improve the regulatory process, whether they will restrict it or ban it, or they will allow to use it if this risk assessment is done correctly. Means that you have good controls. If it is used in Europe, then it will be a safe use. It will not have any harmful effects or adverse effects on the environment, on humans. So that is the objective that they are trying to improve with this. And you can see your chemicals is lying where. So if you are in Europe, then I am providing this 23,000 chemicals list. And this is the list under review by the European Union. And these chemicals are listed by their name and I think also cache number. And you will find if your chemical is there, then where is this chemical in this universe, whether it is not yet assigned or it has data generation. So you can see that how you manage your chemicals, what is happening with your chemicals. It's a good for a responsible company to understand these developments. And then the evaluation process is, I will again not go, but the process of evaluation is that authority evaluates your dossier. They check manually. So somebody, a technical person is checking your dossiers for specific requirements that you have entered, and they are coming back to you with the decisions that your dossier requires certain improvement. Now the process is that since you are a registrant but you are not aware of this information, it's a public information. You can see whether your chemical is evaluated or it is yet to be evaluated. And if it is evaluated, the process is that first of all, the authority issues you a draft decision, says that your chemicals require certain information. And with this, we are saying that the draft decision means that your chemicals, you have a decision making process at this stage, because if you do not make any decision, and usually it is, let's say 4 months from the date of draft decision, that you need to decide based on the costing, because the evaluation will give you the additional cost. So for example, you have already paid some 60,000 euros, and this evaluation has come up, which requires additional 10 studies, and there are some toxicological studies which are running into 1 crores or 2 crores of Indian rupees. So that cost will lead you, additional cost share that we have seen in our experience is ranging from 2,000 euros to 500,000 euros per product. So even if you have paid 50,000 euros, you might get a bill of 200,000 euros. So be careful with this evaluation, and our recommendation is to check. And if you found that the business is not viable, you cannot pay additional 200,000 euros, then you need to decide on your business whether you deactivate your registration or you downgrade your registration. So there is a possibility that I have mentioned that you can downgrade also, but the process is not officially published, but it will be possible to downgrade if you are not doing business in that tonnage band, or you decided to not to sell in higher tonnage band. But then otherwise you can make a decision that you deactivate your registration, means it will be invalidated. Your registration number will become invalid and you have to re-register. You cannot sell your product any longer into European market, which means your registration stands invalid. And then you don't get this additional cost of 2,000 euros. But if you don't do this, and nobody has come up with this information, and after 12 months, this has gone to the final decision, and this final decision is a legal binding decision. You cannot escape from this 2,000 euros then. So there are legal actions against the company based on the contractual obligations you have signed. So I would like you to be careful in this kind of, because until 2027 this process has already started, and this is one of the message I would like to give, that please follow these decisions, and testing proposal and the evaluation are leading to certain additional cost. If you have higher tonnage band registrations, please be careful and try to resolve this issue with your consultants. Some changes on the chemical regulation on the strategy which is coming from the Green Deal of European Union, and they are saying that I am focusing on the important part, that there is a change in the registration requirements. So means that there are some additional information which has already been published, I think around 14th of April before I traveled to Mumbai. There are certain changes already initiated due to this, but then more changes are coming. For example, polymers were exempted from registration. Now this change will demand certain polymers to be registered also. And then there was no chemical safety report for 1 to 10 tons, but now this change will demand chemical safety report also for 1 to 10 tons. Okay, so these are one of the main changes. And then evaluation, as I said, will have a expiry date, that if you don't decide between these days, they will automatically revoke your registrations. And then we have certain changes on the so for example, if you are doing safety data sheet, the Europe is also trying to implement certain softwares in Euclid also, that safety data sheet templates will be provided also by the European Union, so that companies can, usually it's quite expensive softwares, we have seen 5 lakhs to 50 lakhs, and we also use those annually. But this is something which is coming in some years down the line, but we are providing some information through a booth. So do visit us through the trainings that we are organizing in this area. Authorization restrictions, I will not go, but there are significant changes in the authorization process. It's very complex, and there are certain options that has been given to the by the Commission, that whether scrap authorization or changes in the process. And then some information on the new categories of HVACs. Right now, I think around 200 or 300 chemicals, but it will go beyond 500 or 800. So based on these changes, and chemicals is quite evolving, regulation especially. So follow these changes, and it's public. So I have provided certain link as a source. So this information you can track what is happening, but it will take a couple of years and you can monitor what changes are happening, and based on that you have to decide your registration strategy. Some important information on updates. So there is a new regulation also in 2020 which demands companies to implement update, and I would say that if you have registered, then annually you should maintain your dossier up to date through your consultants. Usually it is 3 months to 6 months, but I would recommend to evaluate your, it's like your passport. If you move to some other location, you update your passport. Likewise, consider updating the dossiers. It might be sitting idle for 10 years and your software has upgraded for multiple versions, so it may not be compliant. So authorities cannot view your dossiers if it is not updated. So help them in updating your dossiers according to the new softwares which are being implemented. So this is very important that, and then certain changes which is, as I said, from 14th of October, which will implement is the new requirements on testing. These are more technical related testing which has been introduced to make some clarity. Some information on identification has been introduced, but then authority is going to provide later of 2022 some guidance which will help you to decide on these updates. So I have to make a rush, but coming to the UK, the only message I would like to give is that whosoever has done UK compliance and selling chemicals to UK, they have to carefully watch changes happening in UK because they are deciding on two things. One is that they are planning to move the registration deadline from 2023 to 2025, or there are certain patterns that we will see that the 2-year extension to the deadlines means that 2023 will move to 2025, 2025 will move to 2027 and so on. So this is again too tight, we don't see these options happening. The third option is that they will move 3 years because of the industry is not prepared and they are not able to manage these compliances. So this is the second option also that put forward. So the first deadline was 2023, which is no longer there, means that you have more time to plan your registration and budgeting, and your customers will be also quite concerned that what is happening. So they will be sending you emails, what is happening with the registration. You must know these changes so you can communicate well with your customers. And HSE has all the information on the website, so you can always see. And there are some other options that they are considering, which we see that could be possible. But we are not committing on anything. It is based on our own consultants and expertise they have, and we are making certain things. But we expect that this regulation amendment has to go if they make certain change, because regulation was already written. They have to amend this regulation to implement this change, and it will happen 2024. So this is something on the registration deadlines postponement, so you don't have to worry, but then you have to follow these developments. The second important change is they are planning to change the registration strategy altogether. So they are right now, they are saying that it's more of a repeat Europe registration than UK registration. So industry is facing these issues because of certain on the trade agreements, on the data sharing agreements, how they were written is not appropriate for UK REACH, so that companies will again have to pay for the data they have paid already for Europe. So that's the reason they are planning to change, and we see that this 2024 the changes will be proposed. Briefly I will tell, this is the HSE, how this is happening. I am providing the website, but this is the process that we are considering that not all information will be required, okay, so which was the case previously, means it will be lower cost of registration. In nutshell, it will lead to the lower cost of registration, but there are these two process, which is if your substance is not in high risk, it will be a more means if it is of high risk, then it will be a similar requirement which is there. But if it is of lesser risk, then it is based on the substance hazard information profile. It could be like 3-4 page document that needs to be submitted, and then some public available information which will include some kind of chemical safety report on the assessment based on the uses. So it will be the change based on the chemicals which are not hazardous, or they have defined this list at UK. So this is the two changes which are happening in UK. And again, a note on this discussions that we have to wait what will happen. On Turkey, not much change, but I would say that Turkey is conservative in terms of the deadline. They have only one deadline, 2023, that you have to submit your registration. Either you are selling 10 tons, 100 tons, 1000 tons, all chemicals needs to be registered by December 2023, which means that if you have pre-registered hundreds of chemicals, you have, I think, 20 months to complete your registration, which is nothing. And imagine the budget your company would need to register. It could go up to 20 crores or 30 crores. So understand this budgeting, understand where you stand, and not much communication is also happening. So whether authority is planning to make a change into deadline, so far there is no communication. And out of 95,000 chemicals, 18,000 substances were, let's say, pre-registered, and out of 18,000, there are only 100 substances where we have a lead dossiers which is being registered. So imagine there is a huge gap where the chemicals will go and who will register. So those things you should monitor, whether your chemical is in safe, whether somebody is registering or it is sitting idle. So what kind of budgeting you are looking, your customers, communications, it has to be planned accordingly. You cannot tell them that you will register, but then the cost of registration is not few lakhs, but few crores of Indian rupees. So your decision making, your communication with customers is very important. So these things you need to, my recommendation is to improve communication with the consultants and understand where you stand with your chemicals for Turkey. Now India, I will focus on the two specific changes. In the chemical industry, the BIS is the known authority, which is Bureau of Indian Standards, having head office in New Delhi, but they have several branch offices in different states of India. And they are working in the two regulations. In India, we have acts and rules, and it's a 2016 Act and 2018 rules, which demands certain set of chemicals to get a license of your manufacturing site. It's a chemical, it's a pure chemical, but then it is license of your manufacturing site where this chemical is produced. So REACH is different. It has nothing to do with this license, but then information requirement is different in both the requirements. So the government, the Department of Chemical and Petrochemical of Ministry of Chemicals is responsible, is the authority to decide which chemicals they would like companies to obtain the license for their manufacturing sites. It will be also for foreign manufacturers and the Indian chemical manufacturers. So the government is going to change this. They are improving chemicals. Earlier it was, आपने ISI सुना होगा. ISI was marking, when we were young, we were only buy ISI product, electric components. So this is similar. ISI mark is now introduced on chemicals. So on your packaging, changes has to happen. So those things you need to see what changes, and of course we want to help government that what kind of policies or changes they should see to have industry to implement. We have written legal text, but it is not clear for industry to implement. Practical guidance are not there. So a lot of communication, lot of liaising happens with the government in order to manage their requirements. So this is something you should consider. And Ministry of Consumer Affairs and Food and Public Distribution is the responsible ministry under which BIS is responsible, and they are covering, different ministries are covering different products. But we are focusing on Department of Chemicals and Petrochemicals for this particular expo. And there are 55 chemicals which have been introduced from last 2-3 years. Many chemicals have been introduced, and to our information and meetings with the department, there are I think 87 more or some 100 chemicals will be more added. In this year there are some 8 or 9, but then it will go up to some hundreds of chemicals. Okay, so please follow this requirements. Nobody is aware of because it's not public, but then you can follow this information through this. And as I said, 54 chemicals is something which is on this list, but we will provide this information also, that how this is developing. It's not only harmful, there are polymers also there. So chemicals and petrochemicals both are there. Okay, so follow this and changes are, it's a 6 months you have to apply for license. And there are of course panels, provisions. In India we are looking at that, are you responsible player through GST, how they are trying to implement. So a lot of IT changes are happening in the government. It's more converting from manual, a lot of IT changes are happening, and that will basically enforce you to comply. And certain useful information through the Indian gadget you can follow, and a lot of regulation changes are happening at the Indian gadget. It's all electronic. And then of course BIS websites, you can follow these changes. Sorry, I have to rush. This is my last on the India reach. I'm calling it India reach because the principle is same as Europe. And this is the draft regulation which is come up by the government in August 2020. And there is no further updates as on date, but all the talks so far is based on this update. Okay, so there are similar requirements of registrations, and I will not go again into details, but for you to know that there is a delay in this implementation. So this is the message I would like to give because of changes in the government, and our minister is also responsible for health. Okay, and he has additional responsibility of chemicals. So he is already occupied person at this area and this environment. So there are certain changes. Also the government organization has priorities, different priorities at the moment. So we have to respect those, but then we are working on this lines, and you must know what changes, what requirements are there, and follow our YouTube channel. But I'm giving basic information that it will be more of accident. You have heard of Seveso, and Europe and other US is also, I would say, saying that India is doing Seveso as a part of the REACH is very good. They are learning from us also in that area. So it is of hazardous chemicals. If you are using in your plant, then you have to ensure that the accidents are not happening. Accidents are being reported, but nothing is happening. So I would see one day that these things are more transparent for the country and for the person who is affected or the families are affected. And they should improve this as a normal requirement for the handling of the chemicals. So it will include hazardous chemicals on the safety, accident preparedness. It will include registration and notification from the REACH. So both, and this slide is again will have to skip due to the time, but I'm consolidating this in the one stage. One is the notification. In India REACH, you don't have to make a registration like Europe. So the India REACH is something looking at you know your chemical well. So for example, government wants each chemical manufacturer to prepare safety data sheet. Right now, they don't know how to prepare safety data sheet. If it's sodium chloride, check in Google sodium chloride and content, copy your content, and it's done. But the idea is that there are 16 chapters, and in your company, you might have expertise only for certain chapters. But then you have, as a company, you must know your chemical. It's not that you don't know a chemical and you start selling a chemical. So government wants company to know what they are manufacturing through the safety data sheet and certain information on your chemical profile. So the notification is the main regulatory tool in India, and that will be the only basis that how companies in India and outside companies selling to India. And it's more of a screening tool. You have to pay for notification, and then you have to make an update of last year's sales to this notification, and that is the main requirement of this regulation. Registration is only for hazardous or let's say priority substances, which are like HVACs you have heard. There are 750 and it's a dynamic. So more chemicals will be screened, evaluated, and whether it's listed as in priority or hazardous, depending upon this. So understanding where government is coming from is important for you to manage these compliances. So I would recommend to follow notification, but this is delayed. So I don't see, most of the requirements will come if the regulation comes in force, let's say 1st of January 2023, then the regulation will start 1.5 years of this. So 1.5 years you have time to manage, but then you consider 1 year. Jab bhi regulation comes in force, you plan it according to 12 months. But this is something you can see more our videos. I'm talking here more often now. And this is the hazardous chemicals, which I was saying that you have certain changes. It is already existing regulation in India, but then there are certain changes on tracking, transport of hazardous from, let's say, Nhava Sheva to your plant in maybe in Faridabad or in other part, Tamil Nadu or whatever. You have to make certain changes and notifications on this transport and tracking. And then there are certain other similar requirements, industrial activity. I will, of course, has to skip this, but this is important for you to understand that you have certain obligation right now if you're manufacturing chemicals according to this regulation. You don't have to wait for India REACH. Of course, there are certain enforcements will be enhanced, but this requirements applicable at the moment also. Okay, so this is the obligation similar to what European REACH has offered. It is more of, let's say, companies outside. I don't see anybody here, but you have to follow. These are the requirements that you have to see that consider in your company. You have to have a resource. You don't have people in handling chemical regulations. Mostly it goes to quality, EHS, R&D. They already occupied people in the company. So I would request that company should invest in regulatory people. So they have a dedicated role and improve the company profile, information on chemical and regulatory challenges, not the quality. Quality and R&D has a different role altogether, and they should not contribute to regulatory. And regulatory people has a direct communication with management. They have to convince them it has to be done, then it has to be done. Okay, so there is a cost, of course, but then it's a more of responsible player. You have to comply and respect the country regulations. So I will again skip this part, but then I was looking at that most of the companies have registered in Europe. They can benefit on this India regulations, and something that we will of course cover through our trainings. This is on your requirement. You can go through this slide at your leisure. How you plan, how you handle this regulatory requirements. But some tips are provided, and we have another YouTube on this specific topic. So just to conclude, that Europe, you have to apply and consider the evaluation. You update your dossier requirements, new informations are coming. Safety data sheet is something that we will also help you. And then UK REACH is extended deadline and the change in the registration strategy. Turkey, there is no change, but you have to act fast. As I said, it's only 20 months that you have to complete your registration. So that's more. UK, you have safe, you have to only monitor, but Turkey, you have to act. You don't have anything that will save from this 2023 deadline. And India, BIS and REACH, I will only inform you that the Department of Chemical has recently introduced IFC, which is Industry Facilitation Cell, and they are, for you, they have dedicated directors and people. We have already met them. They are very nice people. So you can interact with government now openly. You can raise your issues, any issues you bring forward. They want to handle it transparently, and it's an industry interact basically, and they will working on it how to improve this through this case study which they have started. So 13th April they have announced it. It's public. So you can see in the department website, and you can interact 4 to 6 p.m. afternoon, and they have visit also. So you can get an appointment. You can personally visit, and also through phone calls you can plan. But I would suggest that meeting government would help you to raise your concern. There are a couple of items they have defined. So this is a new information I would like to share, and more things will come as now the government is more towards Make in India, how to help industry to resolve this issue with the imports and things like that. So I will not cover everything today. I have more to share, but I am available at my booth. Please come and visit. And we are also signing up for our safety data sheet training, and we have free template for companies who are doing business with Europe. They can download this template by making small registration. It's a free, and then also you are eligible for the training that we are planning to happen in India. We are already doing it in 2018, and then we are again coming up. The course is under validation. It's a one-day on-site training, and it is for the GHS safety data sheet, which will also help industry to see that how they develop their safety data sheet. So this is all from my side.
Since we don't have any brand, so we are making for other brands. So all they visit us, and they have a very stringent type of.
It's like a tall manufacturing arrangement.
Yes,
they are looking for
yes.
For Castrol or some GP or something.
For Castrol, we are in active talks with Petronas, with the Idemitsu and all MNCs.
So means that you are buying chemicals outside your company, mixing it, and then selling it to someone.
Absolutely.
So you're not manufacturing. So your requirements of manufacturer is different?
We are manufacturing, sir, because, base oil we are procuring from refineries. And then we have a reactor, we have the entire plant machineries and also there. from there we are, mixing it and all.
So there, in the regulations, industry is looking at manufacturing of base oils as a separate candidate,
Okay.
regulatory requirements, and you as a separate candidate.
Right.
Because you are using chemicals, you are doing value addition, but then you are a formulator. So
Ha, ha.
formulator is a different industry, requirements are different.
Okay.
It's a less requirement and you have to educate yourself to reduce your cost of compliances. It means you have to work with the manufacturer.
Right.
You must know knowledge on these changes. So that is something I would recommend. And we would be happy to
Thank you so much.
host
Thank
you
you.
at
Thank
a stall.
you. Thank you so much.
See, the corona has taught mankind to shift from artificial lifestyle to natural lifestyle. And that is why in the whole world, the importance of green chemistry is emerging very fast, Okay. Now, how do you look the chemical regulatory updates in the context of green chemistry, since green chemicals are more safer?
Right, good question. So, regulatory point of view, they are looking at two things. One is that it's a synthetic manufacturing or it's a natural coming from nature. Let's say, for example, castor seeds you only have a physical process to extract oil.
Yes.
And the process doesn't change the chemical characteristic the way it is coming from the nature.
Correct.
It stays as it is when it is sold in the packaging. But when it comes to distillation, the temperature changes the chemical structure also. So regulators are specific. Some green chemicals would require registrations also. Some might skip because of the nature of how these chemicals are produced and obtained from the nature. Based on that, certain exemptions are there. But essentially, it's more of chemical effects on the toxicological studies. So how it is infecting on skin, how it is infecting on certain organs of humans based on certain tox studies. We don't know, because green chemistry, there is no also study that, of course, if there is a study, then all regulators would like to see that in the dossiers. But I would expect that there could be some reduced requirements, but registration would still apply if we cannot demonstrate that this chemical is no harm for the skin or the organs.
Yeah. Second issue, a lot of ethanol from our country. Since our ethanol is much more cheaper than other countries. Okay. That time we will definitely approach you for regulatory purposes of the Japan for export of ethanol.
Ethanol, in addition to Europe, Japan, China, in fact US, they have a safe chemicals kind of list or some kind of chemical inventory in the country, which means that they know information of these chemicals as a country. You can sell those chemicals without registration. So ethanol would be sold without any registration because it is listed in their inventory, because I know it's a commodity chemical like benzene and methanol. So you don't need registration if it is listed in their inventory.
Okay.
So there are different countries which have a list of inventory. Under those, if it is listed, no registration. But Europe is a different requirement. If you want to sell to Europe as an ethanol, then it will demand registration. Europe always demands registration, whereas Japan, China, they may not require you to register. You can sell. So regulatory requirements may not apply to Japan, but of course we can talk.
And especially which is needed from the Holland and France, which are the largest fragrance aromatic chemicals market in the world. Okay, they may require perhaps this regulatory for perfumery grade alcohol.
For regulations, Europe will always demand registration.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for the good question. Good day.